Hello. Last time we left off for Unsolved Murders was Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm. That one, simply fantastic story. The other is called Death of a Dream. Well, that's the title of the chapter, but we all know about the Black Dahlia murder from 1947. Let me find pictures, because there's supposed to be pictures. Okay, sorry. I'm literally looking for... Okay. The Black Dahlia. As you can see, like, from this part. Black Dahlia. I will give up in Dahlia killing if I get 1 year. Do not try to find me. That was a letter to the Examiner on January 23rd, 1947. And it was a letter from the Black Dahlia killer. Suspect Robert Red Manley took a lie detector test. There's another suspect, which is probably the main suspect. This fucker, who's a doctor, who killed her. It's the same photo, so yeah, you can tell. Okay. What? I have to get a drink. Milk. The morning of January 15th, 1947 was dreary and chilly when L.A. housewife Betty Bersinger set off for a shoe repair shop with her 3-year-old daughter Anne. Keep in mind, this is a mother and daughter. On South Norton Ave, they passed eerie abandoned lots overgrown with bushes and weeds. Something white caught Betty's eyes. At first, she thought that it was a tossed-aside mannequin, discarded, perhaps because it was broken in half. Then she realized the two halves were the body of a woman. I was terribly shocked and scared to death, Betty later told the reporter. She grabbed her daughter and rushed to the first house that had a phone. The woman that Betty and her daughter discovered would quickly become a household name as newspapers across the country detailed every twist and turn in the search for her elusive killer. Her name, Elizabeth Short. A young woman who had come to California hoping for stardom, only to achieve it after her gruesome death. It was those two elements, the glamorous Hollywood dreams and the lore detail of Elizabeth's murder, that catapulted the case into public consciousness like few others before it. The young woman had been sliced carefully in half, drained of all of her blood. Like, just imagine a mannequin in half, but as a human. Pale as a ghost, because of no blood. Your organs are still inside. but being cut in half and, hold on, give me a second. It's my cat. Yes, I hate that. I'm bird watching my neighbor's birds next to me. Okay, where was that? Drained of her blood and then posed in a bizarre spread eagle display among the weeds. Police suspect that her killer might have been a doctor because the bisection was so precise. Keep that in mind. It looked clean. No dumbass would do that. Like, literally. Except for a doctor. Or mortician. Sorry about that. Rope marks guard her ankles, wrists, and throat. The police believe that she had been hung upside down by her feet and tortured before her death. Her mouth had also been slashed into a grotesque, too-wide smile. Think of Joker from the Batman franchise, or anyone who's a creepypasta fan, like myself. Jeff the Killer. And I think it's called the Gulag Smile. Also the urban legend of Kuchisaka Ono, aka the Slut-Mouthed Woman. So there's a couple references. And it came from this one fucking case. So yeah. As the Los Angeles Times reports, the victim of one of the city's most brutal killings, according to veteran detectives, the attractive brunette could have died from head wounds, a deep stab wound in the abdomen, frenzied slashings in the back, or from strangulation. Investigators said jagged knife wounds were found on the breasts and the left leg and running from the mouth across the face. Police were quick to identify the body. Fingerprints revealed that the murder victim was named Elizabeth Short and that she had been arrested for underage drinking in September 1943. Just 2 years before World War II ended. And she died just 2 years after World War II. So, yeah, this case happened after World War II. Police were, Elizabeth Short, and yeah. Those who knew Elizabeth could not imagine how the five-ish girl they effectively called Beth or Betty had met such an appealing end. Elizabeth Short was born in Hyde Park, Massachusetts in July 1924 to Phoebe May Sawyer and Cleo Short. Even as a child, she stood out with her raven hair and gray-green eyes. Her small nose stood out, was slightly upturned. The only physical flaws noted in death were a few surgical scars, chewed fingernails, and bad lower teeth. She always wanted to be an actress, said her mother a week after Elizabeth's death. She was ambitious and beautiful and full of life. But she had her moments of despondency sometimes she would be gay and carefree, then in the depths of despair. Such mood swings are not unusual for some young women, but Elizabeth's early home life was troubled. Her father lost most of his life savings in the 1929 market crash, abandoned his family the following year. His car was found abandoned near a bridge, causing many to believe that he had died by suicide. Damn. I thought my past / early childhood was rough. She had it rougher. Phoebe was left to raise her 5 daughters alone. The fatherless family moved to Medford, Massachusetts, where Phoebe worked as a bookkeeper. Elizabeth struggled with asthma and recurring bronchitis, and a suggestion that she should have moved to a more hospitable climate led to her to happily drop out of high school in 1943 and head to California to pursue her acting dreams. She discovered that her father was alive and living, and Valjo, California, moved in with him for a few months. The reunion was not a happy one. He claimed that she would not stay home, so I told her to go her way and I go mine. He never spoke to her again. When police informed him that his daughter had been murdered, his response was, "I want nothing to do with this." At one point, Elizabeth set to marry a major in the U.S. Air Force named Matthew Michael Gordon. However, he died in a plane crash in 1945. By 1947, Elizabeth, now 22, had something of a home for herself in San Diego. She wrote to her mother once a week, was working as a waitress, appeared occasionally as movie extra, and auditioned for acting jobs whenever she could. She loved to see and be seen in the movie Colony Spotlight. One friend recalled, her roommate and friends told police that Elizabeth had several suitors. I gotta get a drink again. Yeah, my mouth gets dry. That was my cat. Okay. The media then engulfed Elizabeth Short's. Hold on. I'm just seeing. Okay, I'm almost done. The media frenzy that engulfed Elizabeth Short's death cannot be understated. The case itself took on a life of its own, commented Los Angeles Police Detective Brian Carr, who oversaw the case between 2000 and 2009. It was front page news in all the local papers every day. Just 2 days after her murder, reporters began calling Elizabeth the Black Dahlia, a sensational moniker bestowed in part as a nod to The Blue Dahlia, a popular thriller movie starring Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake, and because of Elizabeth's dark hair and fondness for black clothing, her boyfriends were also credited with giving her the nickname. Every development in the case, no matter how fruitless, seemed to warrant breathless coverage. When Elizabeth's friend said she had bragged about being friends with famous film actress Ann Todd, the wire service United Press International announced that the police would question the British star. Todd told police she had never met the slain Scarlet. One suspect after another was arrested, each getting a guilty man's test treatment for a day. The last person to have seen Elizabeth alive was a 25-year-old married salesman named Robert Reed Manley. He had been dating Elizabeth, and according to her roommates, had threatened her. He had driven her from San Diego to Los Angeles on January 9th, 6 days before the discovery of her body, and had dropped her off at Hollywood's Biltmore Hotel. Yeah, it was true. It was weird at first, but that place is haunted. In Los Angeles, the Biltmore Hotel, where the Black Dahlia was last seen at using the phone before going and being spotted at the Cecil and then go. Newspapers nationwide ran a photo of Manley taking a polygraph lie detector test, which he passed twice. When his alibi for January 14th and 15th checked out, he was released from custody. Another promising suspect was 29-year-old Army Corporal Joseph Damas, who also claimed to have been dating Elizabeth. Interest in him was piqued because he said that he blacked out after their date, which, according to him, took place just 5 days before her body was found. So he had no memory of what happened to her. On February 8th, 1947, the Los Angeles Herald Examiner newspaper proclaimed that Damas has confessed to the murder. However, when police checked his confession again, the known fact it was revealed to be false. Damas was dispatched to a psychiatric. Sightings of Elizabeth in the days prior to her murder also proved false. Her movement between January 9th and the discovery of her body on January 15th remained a mystery. Having drawn a blank so far, by June 1947, the police had interviewed and released 75 possible suspects. The investigation shifted focus to the women in Elizabeth's life. Could the killer have been the girlfriend or wife of one of Elizabeth's lovers? Indeed, reporters and officials, Elizabeth's sex life was the undercurrent of many stories, with reporters and officials alike dwelling on the suspect and passing judgment. The average may have caught up with Beth Short. She may have been picked up one man too many, was the observation of police psychiatric Dr. Paul D. River. The killer reached out to the police, sending a letter created from words and letters cut from various newspapers and magazines. The correspondence here is Dahlia's belongings. Enclosed were Elizabeth's birth certificate, her address book, and other personal papers. A few days more of her belongings, a shoe and a bag, were found in a trash dump. Manley confirmed that both had belonged to her. The killer then sent a letter to Examiner telling the police where he would turn himself in. However, he never showed up. He sent another letter, "Have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified." However, several innocent people, both men and women, did turn themselves in. By 1996, police had fielded about 500 such convictions. Several of those making false confessions were charged with obstruction of justice. In January 1949, a bellhop named Leslie Dillon contacted Dr. D. River saying he wanted to discuss the murder for a book he hoped to write. D. River immediately grew suspicious. Dillon had previously worked as a magician assistant, meaning he knew how to drain blood from a body, as had done with Elizabeth's corpse. Without prompting, Dillon revealed details of the crime which police have never been able to explain, says LAPD Detective Lieutenant Harry Hansen. After questioning, Dillon implicated his friend John Connors, whom police interviewed but released. Investigators refocused on Dillon, their best suspect yet, and he set to appear in late 1949 before the grand jury. However, the case was dismissed when the judge ruled that Dillon had been illegally detained. The British author Paul Eatwell presented a theory in 2017 that Dillon had orchestrated the Black Dahlia murder with his friend Connors and Mark Henson, a local nightclub and cinema owner. Henson was known to frankly bed chorus girls and wannabe actresses despite being married. He was linked to Elizabeth because he had given her a place to stay the months before her death. In addition, an address book bearing Mark Henson's name was sent to the police by someone claiming to be Elizabeth Shirley's murderer. His name was embroidered on it, but Elizabeth had been using it herself. Sorry, it's my cat. Eatwell suggests that Henson had connections within the police department, connections that had enabled the trio to get away with murder. More than 70 years after the crime, investigators continued to wade through countless theories. Most can be discounted, but one of the most intriguing comes from a former homicide detective who claims to have figured out the killer's identity: his own father. Los Angeles Police Department veteran Steve Huddle began suspecting his father, a respected Los Angeles doctor, after his stepmother gave him a small photo album that belonged to the elder Huddle after his death in 1999. The book, which measured just 3 inches, 7.6 centimeters square, contained black and white photographs, many of which Steve recognized. He came upon 2 images of a black-haired woman he did not know. After painstakingly comparing facial contours and counting freckles, Steve Huddle became convinced that the photos were of the notorious Black Dahlia. "I loved my father and respected him," Steve Huddle told an Associated Press reporter in 2003. "His blood flows through my body. He gave me being, but now I have come to look at my father as the true Jekyll and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde." Huddle laid out his suspicions in the best-selling book Black Dahlia Avenger, A Genius for Murder. According to the case files released 50 years after the slaying, Dr. George Huddle was indeed a suspect in Elizabeth's murder. Police electronically surveilled his home for 3 weeks in 1950. Soon after the Black Dahlia case was mentioned in court, when Huddle was tried for committing incest with his daughter, he was acquitted of the charge. Transcripts of overheard conversation include Huddle saying, "So supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." Literally. He said that. At another point, Huddle also suggested that he may have killed his secretary. Why police didn't pursue Huddle is unclear. Officials have repeatedly declined to comment because the Black Dahlia investigation, while ice cold, is still technically open. I don't have the time to either prove or disprove Huddle's investigation, said LAPD Detective Brian Kerr in 2006 episode of the television series Cold Case Files. "I am too busy working on the active case." Huddle was not the first to accuse his own father of being the infamous killer. In 1995, a woman named Janice Knowlton released a book called "Daddy Was the Black Dahlia Killer." She said that her deceased father, George, not only killed Elizabeth, but that she had witnessed the murder as a 10-year-old child. She claimed she had been brought to Elizabeth's home during her father's affair with the raven-haired starlet, and the police documents indicating that they had saw a man named George as a suspect. Further, then her memories were faulty and her book was trashed. Another doctor was put forward as a possible suspect. Larry Hartshurch, Los Angeles Times copy editor, suggested that a man named Whitler Bailey could have been the killer. Bailey was a surgeon who, until he left his wife some 4 months before the murder, had lived 1 block from the lot in which Elizabeth's body was dumped. Harsh became convinced Bailey was a viable suspect after learning that one of the doctor's daughters was good friends with Elizabeth's sister, Virginia. According to Hish, Bailey left his wife for another woman, a fellow doctor named Alexandra von Partikov. Alexandra allegedly ended up blackmailing the doctor because she knew a secret about him, possibly that he was the Black Dahlia killer. According to one of the countless websites dedicated to tracking the case, at least 8 men are still labeled people of interest in one fashion or another. They include Los Angeles Times publisher Norman Chandler, who some allege had dated Elizabeth, a medical doctor named Patrick O'Reilly, who allegedly met Elizabeth through nightclub owner Mark Henson, who was once convicted of a sexual assault against his secretary, and an unidentified black-haired man pictured with Elizabeth in an undated photo found in the trunk of her car. With today's advances in forensic science, it is feasible that the evidence in Elizabeth's case could have been tested to get a solid new lead and find the killer once and for all. However, that is no longer possible. Over the years, physical evidence in one of the highest profile cases in California history have gone missing. Unless it is somehow recovered, the Black Dahlia mystery is destined to endure. And that was the Black Dahlia case. Hope you guys liked this.